Hello and welcome back to Let's Play Deadfire with me, Bregaton. I have decided on a course of action. We're going to sail to Nekataka first. But before we do that, I do want to check out the merchants one more time here in Port Maget to see if there's anything we can buy for our party.
Swords!
We have supplies here. Have a look.
Alright, we're going to spend a pretty penny here, but I think it'll be worth it. At least I hope so. Yeah, we'll wear that for right now, and we'll give this to Adair. And we'll just hold on to that for right now.
Yeah, sure.
Fresh fish!
Alright. Let's head back out to sea. We'll stop by a couple locations on our way through to Nekataka. I'm assuming they expect you to stop at some of these locations. Well, I just had supplies on it anyway, so that works out. The Huaro. You're sailing past the reef when Eld Engrim shouts out, pointing to port. Their list of ships stranded in the middle, perched on a narrow shoal. It tips and rolls with the passing waves. Hanging from its mast is a blue flag showing an image of a crescent moon sinking beneath the waves. The crew gathers around, murmuring in low, excited voices. Chitupek rushes to the railing. "Captain, that's a gift-bearer's ship. No telling what sorts of treasures it's got." Arena snorts. Gift-bearers carry sentimental junk. Worthless stuff. No, that's a smuggler's ship. It's a classic disguise. Shield Sister Dahlia spits into the water. And it's a freaking stupid one. Gift-bearers only visit landlocked settlements. That's a trap. What was that about the gift-bearers, Arena? Arena fixes a pensive frown on the wreck. "No offense, Captain, but the servants of Andra collect things from people want to forget and consign them to the sea. Anything gift-bearers might be carrying will be stuff nobody wants." That's not true. Thoughts? Arena fixes a pensive frown. No, we already read that. We'll start with Adair. With a shake of the head, Adair frowns and says nothing. Jody? My sickle cuts through smugglers just as easy as any kit. Easier, maybe. Licking her bottom lip, Jody studies a seemingly stranded vessel. Alath rubs his chin. I've heard rumor that some gift-bearers operate as smugglers on the side. I suppose it's possible they're carrying something of value. Ain't a trap, Captain. Ship be too smashed to crap for that. I'd be too smashed for crap for salvage, too. Seraphin scratches the back of his head as he peers at the vessel. We'll prepare a skiff. We'll have to row out and climb the hull. You row the skiff above the reefs, the waves tossing it, the bottom of the small boat occasionally scraping across a jagged structure below. You tie off on a snag of coral next to the wreck. The water is rough, and the hull slick with brine. You're able to find purchase between the shifting planks. Climb up. You row the skiff above the reefs, waves tossing it. Oh, we've already read that. You pull yourself up, using bent planks and barnacles for holds. You've almost reached the main deck when a wave slams against the ship. You hear a crash from somewhere below as the vessel rocks. Your legs slip out from under you, and your fingers dig into wet lumber. Your grip holds. Once the ship settles, resume your climb and make it to the safety of the deck. The ship is deserted. You don't even find corpses. The ship had a skiff. It's missing too. Search for salvage. You find several crates of supplies and several more of assorted odds and ends. Handkerchiefs, bead jewelry, cracked scrimshaw, a child's doll. You think back to Arena's comments. I wonder if this might have been a smuggler's vessel after all. Search for evidence of smugglers. Adair glances around before sliding a crate of junk aside and finding a trapdoor underneath. Within rests a small chest brimming with golden sellings. Adair whistles. Smugglers after all. Among the coins rests a small figurine of an imp, of all things. You load your find onto the skiff and row back to your ship. Alright, Laughing Imp cameo, summons 2 brine imps. The jovial imp depicted in this cameo wears a grin full of mischief and malice. The small figurine has a tendency to disappear from pockets, only to reappear elsewhere.
The ring of a bell comes to you on a cold wind. The ring comes again and again, until soon the air is full with the sound of 1,000,000 bells ringing all at once. You are alone. And then, you are not. An indistinct figure stands before you, flickering between forms like a fire-cast shadow. A fixed, taunting grin. Bottomless black eyes. A yawning chasm in the earth. The aspects of Berith, the Usher and the Pallid Knight, shift in and out of focus. And at their back, 4 indistinct shades hover. You feel an eternity stretch out behind each of them, reaching back to places so distant and yet so near you cannot comprehend their size. The shifting image of Berith settles on the aspect of the Pallid Knight.
Watcher.
Her voice is the discordant clangor of gongs struck out of time.
I tasked you to discover Aethys's intentions. Tell me what you have learned.
I don't know how cooperative I want to be, though I did agree to help, and as a gold-packed knight, that's kind of my whole shtick. He's draining souls from veins of luminous Audra.
The Pallid Knight knits her brows.
He does not seek to return to the beyond? Intriguing.
Her sickly pale skin pulls tight across the bones of her face, as if the shell of this aspect does not quite fit the impossible creature it contains. The figure nearest Berith dissolves and reforms in the image of a thin-lipped, ancient crone, whose face has felt the melting kiss of fire. The goddess Wodica strides forward.
This should be fun.
Does Aethys frighten you, Berith? He should. Magran subdued Aethys's influence once before, and yet he returned.
From out of Wodica's shadow shuffles a hunched, bald man you recognize as the god Scan. His skin is mapped with swollen lash scars, and breath whistles through the ragged hole in his face where his nose once was. He does not speak, but stares up at Wodica with naked loathing plain on his ruined face. Wodica steeples her long, knob-jointed fingers.
We must annihilate Aethys now, before he makes a rash decision we cannot easily annul.
She casts a sly look at the Pallid Knight from the corners of her eyes.
I mean, isn't that what she was trying to do last game?
A moon would do the job nicely.
Yeah, we know they're not going to do that, so say nothing.
The figure beside the aspect of Berith flows forward in a swirling cloud of ash.
Plus, Andra is not represented here. And that was more of a jab at Andra.
The ash falls to the tiles and reveals a molten-skinned woman, leaning on a monstrous, wicked-edged broadsword. Magran's glowing lips curl in disdain.
We must find a solution to the problem of Aethys that is neither do nothing, nor destroy the world. I acted in haste during the Saints' War. You will not goad me into doing the same now. To move against him while his plans are unknown would be the height of foolishness. We must find wisdom in precaution.
And what kind of precautions do you suggest?
Magran looks at you as one might a wayward gob of spit on one's shoe.
It is no business of yours what the gods decide.
Another of the silent figures steps forward, and the warm, golden light of a summer's afternoon spills across your face.
Let's all take a deep, calming breath. Perhaps cooler heads will prevail.
Behind Helia's words, you hear the soft coo of doves.
Aethys has been separated from us for too long. Isn't it possible he intends only to gather enough souls to reclaim his realm in the beyond? He should be welcomed.
You look up then into avian eyes. Through them, you see clouds of starlings converge and divide.
What if he intends to betray you?
Helia puts a feathered hand to her chest.
He wouldn't. Betrayal is not in his nature.
Scan shuffles forward.
Yes, yes. We should welcome Aethys's return to the fold. His gratitude we can leverage to cajole him into divulging his plot. Then, when he believes himself to be in our good graces, we do as Wetica suggests, and crush him into the earth.
Scan licks the ragged edge of his lipless mouth and grins, then turns to Helia.
I did not expect such a deliciously ruthless idea from you, Helia. I am impressed.
Helia's feathered crest stands on end.
You wretched little creature.
I don't know if I should keep interrupting, but I'm going to, because it looks like it's adding more dialogue. Attempting to end Aethys may only make things worse.
Your point is well made, little watcher. If self-evident, Aethys has not been known to possess a vindictive nature. Indeed, he has occasionally been magnanimous to a fault. However, if we push him to the brink of reason, there is no telling what he may do. He is, as ever, unpredictable.
Something akin to fondness creeps into her voice.
Then what's the point of this exercise?
The pallid knight gestures for silence.
Aethys cannot be killed, but he may be subdued. Yet to do so will take immense power and time. Both stand in his favor.
Magran grits her black glass teeth.
That is why we must ascertain his plans before he has the chance to put them into motion.
She begins to pace. Her steps leave little trails of fire in her wake. Magran stops and balls her hands into flaming fists.
Even if we manage to destroy his current form, there is the possibility he could return, if he has not already absorbed all of his children.
Absorbed his children? I don't understand.
The pallid knight casts a cold, cutting glare in Magran's direction.
Magran speaks too freely. That knowledge is beyond your ken, Watcher.
Wotica waves the gods to silence.
Aethys gathers strength. His strength is a threat to us.
Her voice takes on a sharp, almost panicked edge.
There is no sensible answer to the question of a resurgent Aethys other than decisive, final action.
Yeah, there's no cause to act now.
Your opinion is unasked for, but noted.
The pallid knight.
We will act when it is appropriate to do so, and not before.
Sorry, I cut off the voice acting. There wasn't more text, but the voice actors kept talking.
The pallid knight steps away from the half circle of assembled gods. She pulls herself up to a great height. The words she speaks next come not from her mouth, but from all around you.
Follow him, Watcher.
The black of the pallid knight's irises expand until her eyes are as dark and cold as the void between stars. She bends down and brings her ghostly face level with your own.
Your debt to me remains unpaid.
Yeah, say nothing. I've already agreed to help. I don't need to say anything else.
She stares at you, unblinking. Like a needle drawn to a magnet, you are pulled toward her one compulsory step at a time. You blink open your eyes and find yourself on the floor of your ship's cabin, alone.
Surprised there wasn't any dialogue from Wodika.
On it.
Oh, interesting. There are fragments of Blade of the Endless Paths and fragments of Whispers of Yenwood. Letter from Afra. Donald, I hope this letter finds you in good health. So she's the woman we helped in Gilded Vale. We went and spoke to the Amoa woman in Anslog's Compass. Bring her a potion. In fact, it was one of, what, 3 Gold Pack Knight options? Hope this letter finds you in good health. It has been many summers now since you first arrived in Gilded Vale. Much has changed in those years, but I'll never forget the kindness you showed me. The gods have blessed me with a son. He is healthy and strong, and already so curious. All of Gilded Vale dotes upon him. I've told him of you. He asks constantly after the Watcher who restored his spirit, and hopes one day to meet you. Until then, know that we keep you in our prayers. Your most graceful servant, Afra.
Will do.
Ship life sure is an adventure, ain't it? Just think of all the places we can sail to, all the sights we could see. This is nothing like being stuck on a farm, or cloistered in the back of a temple.
Jody wraps her sickle against her thigh as she studies the boat's layout. Satisfied by whatever she sees, she tilts her head to you with a small smile.
Tell me what's on your mind?
How are you feeling? Have you suffered any recent nightmares?
They're there in my head when I sleep.
As nightmares usually are.
And sometimes I can taste them on the back of my tongue like a smear of grit. Happens when I take in a particularly volatile soul. Sure thing, Watcher.
No offense, Captain, but your gunners can't shoot for crap. Wish you kept the crew as ship-shape as the Defiant. Need something, Captain? Mariner salutes.
What's gnawing you?
Thank you again for maintaining my story in front of Vanessa and the others.
He gives you a grateful smile that fades almost as quickly as it appears.
I didn't enjoy deceiving them, but it seemed simpler than the alternative.
Are you still thinking about Vanessa?
I realized there could be nothing between us. But it was nice to have a friend all the same.
He sighs. Yeah, I thought we were friends.
You stood with me through more than anyone I've ever known.
He clasps his hands together, working his fingers into a tight knot.
But a lot has happened over the last 5 years.
So tell me.
After we parted, I set out to destroy the Leaden Key.
The faint trace of a smile forms on Adair's lips.
It's controlled us for too long. I wanted to free Kith from it. So for 5 years, I've been tracking down Leaden Key circles, searching for the places where they operate in secret.
He knits his brows. Jody nibbles on her lips to hide a spreading smile.
Trying to undo them.
And how has that been going?
The task has been more difficult than I anticipated.
How so?
I don't think I fully understood the weight of the decisions I would have to make, or the burden of living with them. It was much easier when I only had to follow someone else's lead. My father's, Theos's, yours.
He glances at you out of the corner of his eye. We all have to stand on our own eventually.
I know, and I have.
He laces his fingers together, a familiar look of anxiety working its way over his face.
After we defeated Theos, I thought the hard part of undoing his work would be tracking down the Leaden Key's members and operations.
But
Perhaps this would be easier with an example. I went to a village in Old Avalia, a run-down backwater of a place. Aye, right home like it was.
Palot's expression shifts as Isselmir briefly emerges.
Centuries ago, the Leaden Key had intervened to end some heretical cult. The details were lost, but what had endured was a practice of ritual bloodletting. A gruesome, pointless tradition.
He grimaces.
At every full moon, the villagers would feed the soil with their blood. No one, young or old, sick or hale, was exempt.
They must have had some purpose in mind.
Yes, but the specifics depended on whom you asked.
Adair points affably in approval.
Some thought it would ward off Scan, or bring Bereth's favor on the village, or Gon's blessing to their crops.
He shrugs.
The village priest administered the practice. Grim old fellow. Reminded me of Theos.
He raises an eyebrow at you.
Wicked old bunbag, 'tis what the lad means.
He was a tyrant. I was certain that if the villagers were free of his influence, they'd be free from the bloodletting too. So I arranged for him to have an accident.
He gives you a sly look. Jody's eyes narrow, dark lashes fusing. And then?
The old man died, and the villagers were terrified. They were convinced his death was an ill omen. They blamed it, and every other mishap that befell them, on their lack of faith.
Oh, there's indoctrination for you.
So they began bloodletting every week, turning on their neighbors for giving too little.
His lips twist, as if the words themselves have a bitter taste.
Instead of a handful dying each year, a few perished every week.
He's worked the edge of his sash into a tight knot. He clenches it between pale, rigid fingers. He tried to do the right thing, and that's what matters.
Is it? In the end, the villagers suffered more because of my actions.
You can't be held accountable for other people's actions as long as you act... well... also depends on what your morals are. So, when we get really dig into the whole philosophy of it, I think as long as you try to act right, you can't hold yourself responsible. He pauses again, untwisting the sash at his lap.
I keep wondering what I might have done differently, or how I could have known better.
Yeah, I agree with option 3. Stop dwelling on this. You'll paralyze yourself.
I suppose so. I should get some rest. It's been a long day, and you've given me a lot to think about.
Wait, you still haven't told me what the animancers have to do with any of this.
Ah, that.
He massages his temples.
I'm looking for an old Leaden Key sect. I've found several references, but...
He breaks off, shaking his head.
I want to be sure. Please, let me go over my notes again. Then I promise I'll tell you everything.
This isn't about your notes. You're second-guessing yourself, again.
You know me too well. All the same, I need to gather my thoughts.
He laughs uneasily. We'll talk more later then.
Yes?
He looks back at you, quietly attentive. I like your thoughts on my search for Aethys.
One would hardly imagine that a colossus made of glowing Ardra could be so hard to find.
He shakes his head.
But then I suppose the gods wouldn't have chosen you if the task were easy.
Consequentialism. I was trying to remember the philosophy where you blame... You take an action, and even if it's something you just never foresaw happening way down the line, I think it's still your fault. I think it's consequentialism. It's been a while since I've taken a philosophy course, but I think that's right. Either way, not a good philosophy to live your life by. Because people are unpredictable by nature. What do you know about the Valian Trading Company?
Well, they seem largely competent. I would feel better about that were they not run by profiteers and animancers.
He smiles wryly.
Governor Clario seemed honest and well-intentioned. So one wonders why he was stationed at such an out-of-the-way post.
He raises an eyebrow. You have any thoughts on the Principe?
I'd heard Deadfire had a pirate problem, but I had no idea how large it was. Or how fashionable.
You get the sense he's impressed despite himself.
Still, the only thing more dangerous than a unified pirate nation is one at war with itself. I worry about who will be caught in their crossfire.
Did you ever make it back to Adir?
As a matter of fact, I did.
He brightens.
I saw my mother for the first time in years.
There's a lightness in his eyes and in his posture that you've never seen before when speaking of his family. How was your mother?
She was well. She'd been living with her Thane for quite some time. I don't think she'd been to see my father since I left.
He fidgets with the hem of his garment, looking distractedly at something on the ground.
I used to blame her for her long absences, for not intervening directly with my father.
Remind me, what happened with your father?
He was an exacting man with a violent temper. One that often found its outlet in me.
His face pales a shade. Also, this isn't a benevolent response. I'm sorry, Alof.
It was decades ago now.
He smiles wanly.
I'm just pleased I could come to a better understanding with my mother. I realized that she was torn between two demanding roles. And two demanding men.
He looks back up at you.
I used to resent her for failing to protect me. But I understand now that her absence is what allowed me to grow. Intentionally or not, she gave me the space I needed to learn a degree of independence.
I'm happy for you.
Thank you. It felt good to resolve that much.
Did you see your father? He shakes his head, his lips pressed tightly together.
It's one thing to forgive my mother for her absence. Quite another to excuse him.
Can you remind me what the situation was between your parents?
My father was steward to an earl in the Seathwood. My mother entered into a hamnig with a Thane when I was very young. I think they must have loved each other once, but I recall little evidence of it.
My response to that. It sounds like it was a good trip then.
It was.
He nods. How are you holding up?
It's been a while since I've been able to speak candidly with anyone, especially about the Leaden Key. It's unexpectedly liberating.
Well, that's all.
Yes?
Cool.
If you told me a few years ago that I'd end up following you on another crazy errand, I'd have said you were out of your mind.
He gives you a dismissive gesture with a... Sorry, let me restart. That's something in my throat. He gives you a dismissive gesture with his pipe hand.
Not because I got anything against you, more that trouble seems to come looking for you wherever you go. Yet, here we are again, probably on our way to die. Well, you already did, but me, I mean.
He cocks his head to one side and smiles. I couldn't go having all the fun by myself.
Oh, real nice of you to share. Someday I'll have to get you a gift. And wouldn't you know it, this time is shaping up to be crazier than the last one.
There is something accusatory behind Adair's eyes.
But I gotta say, I appreciate how you've handled things. Times like these, staying decent's not as easy as it sounds. Thought you were weird at first, of course, but you've surprised me.
Decent. Wasn't on purpose.
Maybe it wasn't. Guess I'm just glad things have gone the way they have then. I've been meaning to ask though, how is it you never seem to lose your way through all this?
I like money.
What is it tells you you're on the right path?
Yeah, I think this is a good response. A couple of other good responses too, but I like option 9, and it's in my character's character. I accept that even the wrong path is not a dead end.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. Don't know if it's right, but I bet there's less worrying.
Adair heaves a sigh that sounds as if it's been building up for months. His smile is tight-lipped, wistful.
When I was a boy, things were simpler. Aethys was more like a character we read about in church.
Yeah, I take it there are no statues in these stories.
Well, most stories had him helping folks or making the world work as it should.
He adopts a smile and gently pointed finger of a coaxing parent.
You pray to him. He might help you too.
He lets the finger drop and the smile fade.
There was no cost to it. No confusion about his will or followers taken into extremes. Following Aethys was right. Had no reason to question.
He pauses. It could be the light, but the creases around his eyes and mouth seem longer and deeper than your memory of them.
Do you think there's any way that following him could still be the right path? After all we've seen?
See, I don't know. So we don't know why Aethys is doing what he's doing. But I do think the world deserves better than the gods they currently have, because they're man-made gods. And based off of what we know of like Skane and Woedica, they'll do anything within their power to keep their power. I think the world deserves better.
Is that something we can ask for? Seems like the gods might take that personal.
That's just too bad.
Anyway, I didn't mean for this to get depressing. I think this was just a long way of saying, I appreciate the way you've guided things. Makes me feel like I'm doing some good, going with you.
He shakes his head with a look on his face, like he just remembered a joke. Alright, let's make sure to have new dialogue real quick.
What's on your mind?
Alright. I'm going to call it here. Our next episode, we'll go up onto the deck and speak to, hopefully, Seraphim and... Oh, that's 3 companions in here. So just Seraphim should be up top. But for now, well, hold on. Back down here real quick. Okay. Yeah, so next episode, up to the deck. Hopefully speak to Seraphim. And we'll go from there. But for now, thanks for watching. I will see you guys in the next one.